And then we're going to choose Next. It's going to tell us how many colors it sees. We can reduce the amount of colors, but we cannot increase them. When you reduce the amount of colors and you hit Preview, it will show you what it's substituted those colors for. It's decided that the light green is closest to the yellow and the dark green is closest to the black. We can go back to our original colors, and we have the capability of editing our artwork at this point. When you choose Edit, I can't do that during the webinar because I can only have one program open at the same time. It's going to take you into Paint, allow you to make changes to your artwork before it's converted into embroidery. Then we choose Finish, and we'll choose the stitch type it sees as most appropriate for those areas of the design. If we don't agree, we have the capability of editing the design at this point. I noticed that it hasn't used the same fill pattern for all of the light pink color. So I'm going to change that, and I'm going to say Apply. Okay, now we've changed that. If there are areas of the design that we don't like the shape or the stitch direction of, we have the capability of zooming in on that area, choosing our shape editing tool, click on the area we want to change, and it will show us blue squares or nodes that allow us to change the shape of that stitched area. And we can also change the type of curve that we have. And these black dots with a line between them allow us to change the direction of the stitching. Once we've made all the changes that we want, we just hit Enter, and it will recalculate the stitching to fit in the new directions and the new shape. And Enter. It's as simple as that. Okay, now let's go on to semi-automatically digitizing the design using the Platinum version of the software. I'm going to start a new file. I'll bring in the same artwork, but I'm going to bring it in using my backdrop tool. I then have the capability of choosing my stitch type, complex fill, my color. I'm going to change this to the light pink, which is where I'm going to start digitizing my design. Right-click on the color and choose my magic wand. I'm going to click on the inside of the color I want to fill, and then I'm going to click, hold, and drag to tell it the direction that I want the fill pattern to go in. Click inside, click, hold, and drag to choose my direction. Then move on to my next color by right-clicking on it. I'm going to choose my satin stitch, click on the inside, and right-click. Inside, and then right-click. Then I'm going to move on to my light green for the inside of my leaves. Right-click, complex fill, click inside, click, hold, and drag for direction. Then we'll move on to our dark green. I'm going to choose a satin. Click on the inside, right-click. Inside, right-click. And then we'll move on to our yellow complex fill. And our black. And we'll do this as satin. And I'm going to select my entire design. I'm going to make all the different pieces of my design. Start with the trim. Say apply. Any questions about that process? Fairly simple, almost automatic, but you have complete control over the sewing order of your colors and the type of stitch and the direction it's going in within the different portions of your design. Now let's move on to manually digitizing the design in the gold version of the software. File, new. Bring in our image the same way. We only have two stitch types, the classic satin and the run. So I'm going to fill in this light pink color first with a satin, and then I'm going to convert that satin into a fill. Let's change our first color. Choose our classic satin. And we're going to click on the outside and the inside. I'm going to hold my control key down because I want it to be a curve. Outside, inside, outside, inside, outside, inside. And then we can change this from satin into a fill pattern at this point in time, or we can finish all of them, select them all, and convert them all into a fill pattern to save a little time. Hold my control key down. And then right click. Start the next one. And the next one. And the last one. Now that I've finished all of them, I can select them all, go to my properties box, and change them all to the same pattern, and say apply. Okay, now I'm going to move on to my next color. Whoops. Unselect it first. Go into my next color. And I'm going to go into my views and I'm going to turn off my stitches so that I can see the darker purple area. And I'm going to choose my classic satin. And I'm going to click on the inside and the outside. hold my control key down, and of course you'd want to zoom in a little bit so you can get a better finished product. And then I'm going to walk with my running stitch down to here, switch to my satin stitch, I'm going to stitch to here, end it, walk down so I don't have to have a trim. Start again in this direction. Meet up, and then start a new column. I can switch to my running stitch. Since I haven't stitched this area yet, I can walk underneath it. Change to my satin. Hold my control key down. Walk back to the center. Change to my satin stitch. Stitch over to here. Switch to my running stitch. Back to my classic satin. Holding my control key down to make it curve. And then we're finished. I'm going to go back in, turn my stitches back on so you can see the design so far. Then we could switch to our lighter green color. And we can stitch our leaves. And then we're going to have to jump down to here. We can walk with a running stitch to the next one. Change back to satin. Alternating back and forth. Back to running stitch. Walking over here underneath so we can avoid having to have a trim. Back to satin. stitch to the end, back to satin, walk up to the next set of leaves, oops, back to running stitch, satin, and the final leaf. And then we would move on to our dark green, but since we're running out of time, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to select all of the green color. I'm going to give it a pattern. And then we would do the satin exactly the same way, except we wouldn't have to convert it into a fill pattern. Are there any questions at this point? If we want to add lettering underneath it, we just click on our T for text, click where we want to begin sewing the lettering, type in our letters, choose the height, say 1/2 inch, and say apply. If you don't like the spacing, you can move it. We have these orange squares which allow you to move one letter, or you can undo that. If I select it as text, I can right click and I have the capability of putting it inside an envelope, which will make it curve. I can change the angle of that, whoops, by getting right on that green dot. And I can make it any shape that I want. If I want it to be a football shape, I can stretch it that way. Or I can choose any of the other envelopes to place it inside of. Let's go back to our rectangle. I can put it onto a curve, reverse direction for the bottom, and we can move it right underneath. Basically anything that you need to do. If you wanted your lettering on the top, you just would not click reverse direction. I have the capability of using one of my monogram fonts, or I can use any one of the other fonts that I have on the computer, type in my monogram, choose monogram, and move it to the bottom, and it will make a monogram out of the standard fonts, or you could use a regular monogram font. If I want to just get rid of this. If I want to make changes to this using my select arrow, this allows me to make it taller, wider, or click the corner to make it in proportion, larger or smaller, or I have the capability of rotating it. So you have all the capabilities in lettering and also the capabilities of your select tool. Any questions about lettering? Okay, we talked about how to digitize a design automatically using the auto digitizer, semi-automatically in the platinum version using our tools, and manually in the gold version of the software by selecting, outlining our pieces using our classic satin tool. We show you one more way to create a design, and that would be in the platinum version. File, New, and bring in my artwork using my import artwork tool. This allows me to bring in vector files like an EMF or an Adobe Illustrator file. If I bring in my tree, it allows me to use the outlines that I have within my design. Now this inside of the tree I want to use twice, so I'm going to select it and I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to place it over here for now. Then I want to select these two pieces of my artwork. And I want to combine them. So now I don't have all that wasted stitching underneath. I'm going to convert this to a fill pattern. And I'm going to convert this to a fill pattern. And then I'm going to put it back where I found it. And then I'm going to select my trunk. And I'm going to do this as a satin. And there we have it. 1, 2, 3, and the design is digitized using the vector file. So you get an exact duplication and embroidery of the vector file that you brought in. Any questions about that process? So if you're a screen printer and you have all of your artwork saved as a vector file, you could convert that very easily into embroidery. Any questions at this point? That's pretty much everything I wanted to cover for today. I'll wait a couple of minutes to see if any questions arise, and then I'm going to close the webinar for today. Alrighty, thank you very much, and I hope to see you again next week.